I just came out from seeing the new David Leitch film starring Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, The Fall Guy, and I have some thoughts, so let's get into it. So this was a little bit strange for me going into this one because firstly, I'm not a massive fan of David Leitch's movies. Sure, they're okay and stylish enough, Bullet Train, Deadpool 2, but they always lacked something to me that made me fully connect with them and really rave about his movies. I really only like Deadpool 2 in his filmography, and everything else is just kind of forgettable to me. But the people that are in this movie, Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, I was really excited to see what they were going to do with this movie, especially seeing as this is about stunt performers who are just so unrepresented in a lot of things. There's still no Academy Award category for stunt work, even though it is so integral to making a film and making the actors look so cool and making them look like badasses. So it was really interesting to see a movie dive headfirst into that and kind of show us firsthand how much dedication goes into stunt work. The quickest way that I could summarize my thoughts for this movie is really that it feels like a movie that you have a good time with. You talk about how you had a fun time with it, and then 2 weeks on, you will never once think about this movie, and that will continue on forever. And if it ever does come up, you'll be like, yeah, that was a nice movie, and that's about it. I think The Fall Guy does have some nice moments, and some of the moments where it's highlighting the stunt work was phenomenal. I really, really appreciated those moments and were definitely the highlights of the movie. But there are moments that pull away from that make it feel like it's doing one too many things. And because of that, it loses its focus in moments and doesn't really connect with me like a lot of other David Leitch films. It just doesn't come together in a way that I found to be overly satisfying to the point where I'd be raving about it and super excited for this movie. That's a little bit of a shame because I do think the movie starts on a really promising note. It's going into a lot of what I really wanted this movie to go into, the dedication of stunt work. When we have scenes in this movie, and there are a fair amount, so I have to give credit where credit is due. It's not a bad movie by any means. It's quite entertaining at times. And when we're getting all of these big stunt scenes with incredible stunt work in of themselves, I really, really love that and was really on board with this whole thing. Then you have this romance angle between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt's character, and I quite like that too. They're both very charismatic actors. They are both excellent in whatever they do. They always come out being a highlight in whatever film they're in, and seeing these two just have fun with this movie just made for a much more fun time and added something to the movie that I thought worked quite well, especially playing off the whole movie making process. I find that so fascinating, and when we're going into different aspects of movie making, I just really click with that stuff and find it so exciting. What detracts from this movie for me is basically David Leitch almost getting in his own way. He is known as an action filmmaker. He's very genre specific in that sense and doesn't really branch away from that too often. And The Fall Guy feels like it's branching away the most from what we're used to from him. And I think that's good. I think filmmakers need to experiment more and find new ways of doing what they're good at and being a little bit more experimental at points. And unfortunately, David Leitch does that in the beginning, and I was really excited for this project. And then it slowly just goes back into a lot of what we know from David Leitch. It becomes an action film, and due to the circumstances of these characters, it just feels too outlandish, a little bit too silly, and for some, that is really enjoyable, but for me, it made it feel forgettable because the action stuff in this just feels so hammed in and forced in there. It doesn't really work with the rest of the narrative in my eyes, and I found myself to be a little bit bored in those sections, even if the action is flashy enough and can be exciting enough. But the thing is, with a lot of David Leitch movies, I don't find the way that he does action to be all that exciting to me. Yeah, it's fine, it's shot well, it looks good, but there's just something about it where I'm just not feeling anything. I feel very empty in these action sequences, unlike some really excellent counterparts in other films. But with David Leitch films, they feel just pretty, and that's about it. And I just felt that once again here. And with the circumstances of the narrative, once again, it feels like it's taking away from what's making this movie special. There's enough action in here to sustain its runtime with the stunt work. They're pretty badass people. They do some pretty crazy stuff. So just seeing that is entertaining enough. I don't need to see people punching on in this movie. It just doesn't fit for me. And I just found myself not really enjoying those moments. Because it starts relying so heavily on its genre, it does become a tad too predictable. You kind of know who the antagonists of this movie are going to be pretty much going into it. And even though it's trying to set up some surprises, it doesn't really work that well. And once again, I just think it pulls away from what makes the film really cool and really special at points. The highlighting of the stunt work and the really good moments between Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. The film feels this need to pull them apart consistently. And I thought that was a little bit of a mistake. I think that they played off each other so well that you could have just made a movie about them going through the process of this. You could have some fun jokes about how stunt people not really recognize the way that they should. There's some real potential within this narrative, within what they had set up. But once again, it just takes away from those moments too often. And because of that, I'm just not feeling any impression. The final act is really cool. It kind of culminates everything that it was trying to do. And I think that was the moment where a lot of what those action scenes were trying to do worked the most, because it coincided a lot with the dynamic between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, as well as highlighting the stunt work. Once again, I just think that when it all came together like that, it was really exciting. And I really love that third act. It leaves a really good impression when you leave the theater. And I definitely felt that. I enjoyed my time with this. I never realized this going in, but I really enjoyed the fact that a lot of this was set in Australia. As someone who lives in Australia, it's really, really cool. And to see, people that talk like me and things that I recognize be present in this movie was really, really cool. And seeing these people interact with Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, I just loved all of that. That was just really fun, really exciting. There's plenty of entertainment to be had. Even if it is trying to do one too many things, it feels predictable. And because it is trying to do too many things, it feels like it's going to end about 3 or 4 times and it keeps going. So that can feel a little bit jarring in terms of pacing. But really, the practical filmmaking, the use of excellent stunt work and highlighting excellent stunt work was just a great combination that is just filled with all of this potential that almost comes to a head and feels fully realized. They definitely do a lot with it that I really loved and really enjoyed seeing and was excited by. I just wish it just did that for the entirety of this film, rather than about 3/4 of it. Overall, The Fall Guy is a fine enough movie. It is filled with potential. It is definitely exciting, but as I said, it feels like a movie that a lot of people are going to enjoy and think is very entertaining, but a little while from now, no one's really going to be talking about it, even if what it does is fine enough. As a score, I'm going to give The Fall Guy a 3 out of 5. I think it's okay. I do think it's a pretty safe bet to watch in the theater. I don't think that many people are going to hate this movie, but just keep your expectations in check. I don't think this is the greatest movie ever or anything, but there are worse things to watch. And those are my thoughts towards The Fall Guy. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.